right? So at this time, I was trying to change a lot of these influences, a lot of these people, even the things that were coming up on my phone, through my feed, trying to change my algorithms, things like that, which probably was one of the harder things to do.
Yeah.
But, I even started just literally, I deleted my social medias. I logged out and I just wasn't using them. I started getting rid of a lot of these influences that were in my life, a lot of these people that I felt weren't good for me. So at that time, I'm like, okay, is my job good for me? And I'm like, I don't honestly think it is. But at the time, I'm like, no, like I need to make a living, So having this internal battle with should I leave, should I stay? And I go to the temple to pray about it, and I was going to temple prep classes because I wanted to get my endowment. And I was taught, you can go to the temple and just pray. You don't have to go there to actually do work all the time. You can literally go in there and just pray. So I went in there, I did work, but I went to pray, and I had to pray about whether I should stay or if I should leave my job. And I went in there on a certain day, and I thought I had it all kind of planned out in my head, writing out what I want to say, trying to remember what I want to say in my prayer and notes in my phone. And, I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the locker room, before I get started. And then, it was loud that day. It was busy. So I didn't feel the spirit in there. And I can't do it here. So then I waited till after. I was like, maybe I can do it in the chapel inside the baptistry. That wasn't working out either. It was super busy. And it just didn't feel like it was the right time. So then I got baptized, and then they took me straight into confirmations. I did confirmations, and then, when we do the work for our family, we like to do it all the way through. So you need to get the names recorded and have them brought back to you. So I was like, I need these recorded and brought back. So I was actually, as busy as it was super busy, and all of a sudden I was just in the chapel of the confirmation room, and everybody's just gone, and it's just me. And I go, all right, Heavenly Father, you're pretty good at this. You know what you're doing. So I did my little prayer, and I even prayed before that, and basically every single temple worker that I had saw, I felt was like an emission angel for me. And I basically kind of got all my answers right there while I was in the temple. But once again, I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna try to stick it out. I know I probably need to lead, but I'm gonna try to stick it out. And we ended up getting audited through the investor guy that they hired through the investors, and then we ended up getting hired or getting an audit through. We do a 1-year audit through our corporate guys, and they came and did that, and then I ended up getting fired basically the next week after that. And that was just a few weeks ago. And the first thing that people think of when you say that you got fired or you lost your job is that it's absolutely devastating, and most of the time it is. And but for me, it wasn't. So that's not my story. I'm not devastated. Like I said, I've been on a budget. My money isn't the best. I don't have Bill Gates money or anything like that, but I've been in a worse situation just a few years ago, and I know I can make it through this. So, and then them firing me is the best way that it could have happened, because, I'm still able to get unemployment. I'm still able to have an income and still be able to find things that other ways of other avenues where I can make money that truly bring me joy in this life. And like I keep telling everybody, jobs are temporary. Work, as in temple work, is eternal. Jobs are temporary. Jobs are earthly, and so I stopped doing jobs, and I started going to do work. I started to go into the temple every single day since I lost my job, and that was just a few weeks ago, maybe close to 3 weeks ago, coming on 3 weeks ago. And I've been able to be in the temple every single day, other than Monday, because they're closed on Mondays. I've been going to the visitor center. So I've done probably over 200 baptisms in the last little bit over 2 weeks. I even went up to Lehigh this past weekend, and I did baptisms the morning here in St. George. We left on a Friday. I did it Friday morning, or maybe it was Friday afternoon or something like that. It was like Friday early morning or so. And then we went up to, we traveled up north, and I made an appointment. I went to the Draper temple up there as well. So
Yeah.
you know, I'm doing the right things. I know I'm trying to move in the right direction, and I know that I'll be blessed for it. And hopefully through this, I can hopefully get going on my own podcast and be able to talk more about my story through this. But it went from, you know, getting proxy baptism temple regimen to getting my patriarchal blessing, which it says in there that my mission here on earth is to gather the house of Israel, and I will be the reason for many people coming back to the church, and that especially through my family. So that's something I don't take lightly. Another thing it says is that I will be sealed in the temple, but it'll be according to my faith, and also according to the will of the Lord. So it's given me a lot of direction, you know, and I no longer worry about those things. Those things used to be something that would weigh on my mind very, very heavily every day. But because I got my patriarchal blessing, it's been giving me, like I said, that direction that I've always looked for. So that helps keep me on the right path as well. And then it went from patriarchal blessing to just being sustained and ordained an elder in the Melchizedek priesthood. And like I said, I just traveled up to Lehigh. I'm losing track of time. But everything happened so quickly. But just I think it was just this last weekend. You know, let's say Monday, not just this weekend we had, but the weekend before. And I was able to go up there, and I honestly didn't know why I wanted to go up there. My parents just asked me if I wanted to go. My cousin was being set apart as a high priest to be in the bishopric of his young single adult ward, and it was a poly ward. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll just go up there and see some young, like 2 polys, whatever. Like, I'm old, but like whatever.
You don't even
I'm
start.
still single, dude. You know. But I was like, okay, maybe that might be the reason. But I also have cousins that live in Lehigh, so we're gonna be in Harriman, so right next door. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's the reason. Maybe my cousins already know my story because I called and told them. But I'm like, maybe they need to see me, and they need to see what I'm doing, what I'm going through, and
Yeah.
to feel it. And so I was like, I'm gonna go see them. So I went and saw. I have 2 cousins. One was out of town, so I was able to see one. And I was grateful to do that, but it was very hard because, you know, I love her, and she's still going through those things that I was fighting. So she needs to, you know, get through these things as well. But I had gotten over them, and she wasn't, and it was one of the biggest tests throughout this journey for me. But I still was able to see her, which is what I wanted. But you know, it was a Saturday night, and you know, it was getting late, but I was like, I felt prompted to go see her. I went to go see her, and it was getting late again. I'd gotten there at 10:45, and I was only planning on being there for about an hour, because you know, I wanted to keep the Sabbath day holy, so I wanted to be there before midnight, and wanted to be back home before midnight, and I was sitting there, I was losing track of time. It's like 11:35, and like I gotta go. You know, we're like playing card games, and you know, just to mention, I ended up winning, but which they were saying that they were the best at it or whatever. But anyways,
Yeah, they were wrong.
Yeah, they were wrong. Well, the Lord was on my side, is all I. You know, and we're talking about that too while we're going through it. But anyways, I was poking fun. Anyways. I'm like, it's 11:35. I'm sorry, guys, I gotta go. You know, because it was like a 25-minute drive back. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to like hurry back.
Yeah.
So and I'm unfamiliar with it, but it was a pretty straightforward way, and I kind of remembered the way I came, and so I was kind of, you know, traveling fast, and I ended up getting back to the house that we were staying at. It was a close family friend of ours, and their house is beautiful. It was probably one of the nicest houses I've ever been in. But I get back and they were watching the BYU games. The BYU game was on that night, and BYU was beating them up. And I'm not even a BYU fan, but all of a sudden somehow I become a BYU fan. And
Correct me to the spirit.
right. That's how I feel. I'm just like, it's the Lord, speaking through me through sports, I guess. Anyways, they're watching the BYU game, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. So my plan was to hopefully get back by the time the game was over, but I lost track of time. I got there just before midnight. It was like 11:58. I pulled into a driveway. My dad texted me because we're traveling. He had his phone inside the car. He's like, can you bring in my charger when you come in? I was like, yep, I just pulled in, so I get in, get inside the doors, and it's dark inside, everyone's trying to go to bed, about to go to bed, and I can just hear my, our close friend, Laura, and my dad just talking, and I couldn't make out words, but I come around the corner, and I just hear my dad go, oh, well, it's okay, like, Kaipo's supposed to be here very soon, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? And she just bolts and takes off. And my dad's like, oh, well, Dave fell. So the people I were staying with, he was a contractor. Him and his family had built houses for a living. Yeah. So this house was amazing because he customized it. He designed it. And it had all the bells and whistles. It was like a 10 or 15-year-old house, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Like I said, I'm not kidding. I've been in a lot of nice houses throughout my life. It was probably the nicest house I've been in my lifetime, at least till now. And he ended up having like 4 different brain cancers, and so he had to go through all these surgeries, and he has a lot of physical ailments now. He used to be able to speak, but he decided to do a surgery. And when you did the surgery, it would take your vocal cords away, but it would make it to where you could swallow. So before you couldn't swallow, he could speak. And he decided to switch that about a year or so ago to where he can't speak. He has to speak through a little voice box. Yeah. But he can eat. So he's actually found a lot more joy in that. He's actually become a lot more healthier, So he fell, and he fell in the bathroom. And my dad's like, he fell in the bathroom. Dave fell in the bathroom. We need your help. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like perfect timing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that nothing is a coincidence. I felt prompted to leave there, and I left there for a certain reason at that certain time for a reason. And so, getting him up, it was definitely a team effort. We had to put a sheet behind him, and I felt bad because there's like a little curb on the shower, and he's like laying on top of it. We had to have him like lift up his hips so that we could get the sheet around him and then pull him up and get him up, and got his walker, so he was able to hold on to the walker. But, it wasn't easy on any of us, especially Ken, and I know, just like I was telling you before, I know how it is. Getting up like that was like running a marathon, and I know it. So he's sitting there just panting, and just he's hot as can be. He's starting to sweat. He's that hot, and I know how hard that is. And we finally got him into a wheelchair. We're talking about taking him to the hospital, so we get on his shoes. He was sweating like crazy, so we just put a blanket over him because it was cold outside. It started raining. It was just before we got our first snow of the year. It was raining right then and there. So we get him. We're trying to get him into the car. We pulled out of the bathroom first, and as we're doing that, and his wife is getting all the shoes and the blanket and all that, and I looked to my dad. I said, Dad, we should give him a blessing, right? And he goes, yeah, it's a good idea, of course. So we asked him, Dave, do you want us to give you a blessing? He goes, yes. And I had just been confirmed an elder the Sunday before this. So I'd never given a blessing before in my life. And so he was the first person that I was able to bless. And I told him afterwards, we gave him a blessing. I said, I know that this isn't, ideal. I know that it's not a happy thing for you. I know you're not happy. I know you're ashamed. I know all these feelings that you're going through right now. You're feeling I've been through these, but you know, this is my first time ever being able to bless anybody. So thank you for this, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I know for a fact I was supposed to be here at this time for you now. So it was very apparent to me why I was there at that time. And then we go to the next day. They took him to or I guess I'm not even done. We end up getting him out of the room. We go to put him into the van, and or actually they had like an SUV or something. But once again, he's gonna have to get up to get into the van. So, and everyone was kind of like freaking out, and I just kind of took hold of it, and I literally, everyone was kind of like wanting to like push him up from behind, and I was like, no, no, no. So I pulled him out a little bit, went in front of him, and I was like, Dave, is this okay? And I was like, because he hurt, like he was saying, hurt his shoulder on his left side, and was hurting over here. So I was grabbing him from the lower, from like right here on his ribs more, and I told him, is this okay? Can I grab you from here? And he's like, yeah. So I picked him up myself out of there, and I helped him get into the van, and I was the only one that did that. There was no help, and like I said, this whole time, this journey, and what's gone on with me, that's even a blessing that I can even do that for one. But everyone kind of, afterwards, kept telling me like, "Oh, you're strong," like, how did you even do that? And I'm like, I couldn't tell you. Like, the Lord helped me do that. I can't give you an answer, and we got him into the car, and then afterwards, I felt prompted. I was tired, but I went back to my parents and I told them, I was like, can we say a prayer? Like, yeah, of course. So my dad asked me to say the prayer, and I said like an hour-long prayer, praying for his safety, praying for all of my family, for anything, everything. I was pouring my heart out. It was the most heartfelt prayer I've ever given, and I probably won't be the last, but to this point, it was definitely the most heartfelt prayer I've ever given out loud like that. I mean, I pray every night by myself, and I still say it out loud, but having kind of people with you makes it a little bit different, and bawling my eyes out the whole time. And the spirit felt that night was just unbelievable. I could feel Dave's spirit when I had my hands on him, and then that prompted me to give that prayer at night, and that spirit that I felt there was unbelievable. And then the next day, we get to go to the setting apart for my cousin, and it's a poly ward, which I'd never really been in one, and that was unbelievable. They were just changing the bishopric, so the new bishopric spoke, and the old bishopric spoke, and well, it wasn't the bishopric; it was the bishop, and I guess it was their wives. So can't remember what position they gave them, something at the stake. But they both spoke on both sides. So the new bishop and his wife spoke, and then the old bishop that was being released, his wife, and then he spoke afterwards. And the spirit there was unreal as well. He was the one thing I remember from it all was the bishop that was being released was actually, small world, my dad's old college classmate. So dad ended up knowing him, which isn't rare at all. My dad knows everybody, it feels like. But he said one thing that really stuck out to me. He's told me some more, but he says that he always says aloha to everybody. And he says, why? Is because alo in Hawaiian means Christ, and ha means love. So he says that, put it together, it's the love of Christ. That's what you're saying when you're. And the law can have so many different meanings, but I've never heard it that way. And there was also this beautiful musical number in between where there's a duet of a young man and young woman together, and my goodness, they were so good. The spirit felt in there was unbelievable too. And then, this is where I started getting impatient because, first of all, we started late Hawaiian time, right? So,
Sure.
no, it's true.
We just call it Utah time.
It was Hawaiian time because it was supposed to be starting at 2:00. We didn't start till, or maybe it was 2:30. I can't remember, but it was like we started at like 45. It was supposed to be at 30, and so I'm sitting there. I'm like, "What time does it start?" Like, okay, Hawaiian time apparently. Yeah. So, and then we get done with the sacrament meeting, and it was like the second hour didn't exist. The second hour was in there in the chapel because everybody was in there just mingling, talking forever. And I'm like, I turned to my parents and like, what are we doing? Should we leave? Like, no, we have to do the set part. I'm like, oh my gosh, like Hawaiian time is alive and well right now. Like,
Well, you can say that. I can't.
man, like my brother is also all he runs on is Hawaiian time. He lived there for 5 years of his life. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting kind of impatient. Literally, the whole second hour was mingling and talking. It took us 45 minutes, I think, to finally get into the room to do the setting apart. Like, no joke.
I had to say hi to everything.
Like, oh my gosh. So we're sitting there, and this meeting was even long because we had to set apart every single person, right? So there's like 3 or 4 people all being set apart. The bishop, his wife, the 3 counselors, so 5. And sometimes they do the prayers, they do them short, sweet, short, quick to the point. But oh man, the holy ones were crazy long, but the spirit in there was like I like one I had never felt before. And like I said, I went there for my cousin. He was being called to be the first counselor, and I was offered to go into the circle, so I went into the circle, and that was the first time doing that. And I'd been the one in the chair just a couple weeks ago, or the week Sunday before that, but never been the one putting my hand on somebody. And so I did that, and his name is Tiger Aaron Kaipo Culford. And I didn't even realize that his middle name had Kaipo in it. So I'm sitting there, and as soon as I hear Kaipo, I'm like, oh, I just feel the spirit. I start crying like crazy nonstop because I was named after my uncle, which you said you met on here on your mission.
Yeah.
Which is honestly one of the greatest men that I've ever met in my entire life. And I carry my name with a lot of love and respect for him. And I knew at that moment why I was supposed to be there for that. One, to be a part of that circle, but to know and feel the spirit of my uncle and also my grandpa that have passed away before me. And I could feel their spirit in that room so strong. And I told my cousin, same thing I just told you. I didn't know I had to be here, but once I heard your middle name, I then realized why, you're named after your grandpa, which is my uncle. And I felt your great grandpa's spirit and your grandpa's spirit here in this room. And please don't forget that, and please carry the name of Kaipo with you with a lot of love and respect, just like I do. And he says, of course I will. That was an amazing experience for me, and being able to do that. But, it went from being able to get my, being called to be an elder, and then, he had already set up the endowment, and just barely got done doing that. Just, what is it now, 3 days ago, Saturday, 11/22. So 1/1/22/25 was when I was able to go and do my endowment, and I had taken temple prep classes, so I thought I was pretty well prepped, but you never know until you actually go. And the big intimidating thing to me was everyone kept saying, don't worry about it. Just grasp on to what you can, and some of it you're gonna understand, and some of it's just gonna go right over your head. That's okay. You're gonna learn more every time that you go, and you just gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. And I'm like, what? How does that make any sense? Like I'm like, it was intimidating to me, and I couldn't make sense of it.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much that you can even talk about it too.
Right.
So, and I knew that, but I was like, okay, well, they're just like holding information out on me, I'm like, you guys are just making it worse. I don't understand, but, I now understand that, but at first it was very intimidating. And I heard this story, about President Nelson right before he died. And, I always forget, but I think he was like 101 when he died, right? Or
Something like that.
101,
100,
201
yeah.
or something like that. So I heard a story that he had gone through the temple for his last time. He didn't know it was going to be his last time, but it was his last time, and it ended up being his last endowment session. And he walks out of there and goes, wow, I now understand what the endowment session is about. And I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, man. Like, he's 100 and something. Like, you gotta be kidding me. He just figured it out. I'm like, I'm not living to 100 and something. I'll never figure it out, So I'm like, that's super intimidating. Even the prophet couldn't figure it out, and then somebody told me, but that's the beauty of it, It's like, how would it be if you went in there and you knew it all right away? Would you want to keep going again? I was like, well, yeah, I guess you're right, and I kind of make sense of it like this, where I relate it to just life in general, or even just going back to my story and me going to the hospital, going through what I had to go through to get to where I am, or even just rehab itself. How would it be if you came into this life and you already knew how to walk, you already knew how to talk, you already knew how to eat, you already knew how, you know what I mean? Would you want to even live this life if you already knew how? If I went through the hospital and nothing had happened to me and I was able to just walk away scot-free, would I have even been able to learn all of these things that I had learned before? Like,
Plan of salvation would be for naught.
exactly. It's set up exactly the way that it should be. The temple is teaching you about general life as well when you go through this thing, because the more you do it, just like life, just like I say, it's just like life, because you can plan your whole day tomorrow, but it's not promised. You could go through something could happen, you get in an accident, you could literally be like me and be in a hospital bed for 31 days. So, you can plan out your day tomorrow, but it's not promised. Anything at any moment could happen. So it's always a learning process. You have to take it 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour at a time.
You've had, I don't even know how much, I'll call it personal revelation that I've gotten just from hearing your story thus far. And it's not even done.
That's pretty much to the end of it. Not, and I always say end. It's basically current now.
Right. Even tomorrow.
Right.
Is it okay if I share a few thoughts?
Please. I'm talking too much at this point.
No. No. Kaipo. I'm a little hesitant to say anything because the spirit is pretty strong right now.
Oh, yeah.
It really is.
Like, so there's a couple things that even happened while I was in my endowment session. I guess I can go a little bit into that too. So, like I said, I thought I was prepared, but you never know until you get there. And so I go in, you got to do the interview with someone in the temple presidency. And the temple president wasn't available, so I had to talk with the first counselor. So,
Is it President Wilkinson? Still?
It was Chapman. Chaplin?
For the president?
Oh, I'm not sure then. I think you could be right, but it was Chaplin. That's who I
Gotcha.
was talking to.
Okay.
I think he's the first or second counselor. I could be wrong. Anyways, amazing guy. He takes his time with these interviews, and that's exactly what I do. I like to give detail. I like to kind of stretch the story out. I feel like the more detail you give, the better the spirit is able to come, and you get better reception.
Talk story.
Right, talk story. So it was meant to be that he was supposed to be the person that did the interview for me. It was perfect, and he said a couple things to me that stood out. And one thing he said was, I told him my story, not very short and fast because we only had so much time, but he says, you know what, you're way more prepared for this than you even know. And I'm like, just a second ago, I didn't think I was prepared at all. So thank you. And then he says, because I have a hard time giving myself credit. So he says, so proud of you. We love you. Thank you for being here. He says, because just you being here tonight made the temple better. And I'm like, me? Really, and it really put it in perspective for me. Like, I say this, and I said this in the prayer that I was telling you about, because I pray for my siblings and, my family, my extended family, that they can come back to the church. And if they're struggling with these things, that, they can be the example for their kids. But I also preach for the kids to be the example for their parents. And I'm like, I'm the example. And there's one thing that I've always said, even when I was young, was if I can be a good example for anybody, then that's what's going to make me happy in this life. And so then there's another thing that happened where my dad, he's sitting there next to me, he's my escort, and he kind of tells him, tells the temple or President Chaplin, like, he's been doing a lot of these baptisms. Like I told you, I've been there 10 out of 12 days. If not, I'm at the visitor center, and we've done over close to 200, even over 200 names for baptisms. And he's like, so President, we've been riding on his coattails, and that really put it in perspective for me, because I looked up to my dad, as we all do probably, but my dad is such an amazing man, and for him to look up to me and follow me was probably one of the best things I ever heard say about me in my entire life. And then there's another thing that happened, we go through, talking about the garments and all these things and that, and then there's a picture on the wall behind it. And I said, President Chaplin, there's one thing I want to ask you. He says, what's that? I said, so I know when I took my temple prep classes, and I've noticed this in the baptistry and going to the temple, that everything has a symbol and everything means something. So I'll always stop around to pictures and I'll look at them and I'll stare at them. And sometimes, especially in the baptistry or in the temple, they want to direct you and tell you where to go because they think you're lost. But I'm staring at a picture, and I was looking at the picture behind him. I said, what's that picture? What's the symbolic meaning of that? And he goes, well, that's the prodigal son. And honestly, because I've been away from the church so long, he actually had to explain it to me. But, I was humble enough to ask. I've never been one to not ask questions if I don't know. So I asked him, he told his story. He says, but it's not about the prodigal son. He said, it's about a relationship between a father and son, which is Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. He says, everything of the temple will relate back to Jesus Christ. And on the other wall, I think it's a west wall or something, he goes, this picture right here, and it's a beautiful landscape of Kolob Canyon. And I go, is that Zion? He goes, Kolob Canyon to be exact. I said, oh, it's beautiful. He says, you know what? But it's not about landscape. It's not about Kolob Canyon. He says it's about Jesus Christ. And I go, wow. So then he goes, everything in the temple will lead back to Jesus Christ, because that way it leads us back to our Heavenly Father. He says the lights, he points at the chandelier that's in there, and he goes, the lights, that's the light of God, that's Jesus Christ. And he goes, stand up. So I stood up, and there was a mirror behind me. And he said, do you know the meaning of that? And I said, I don't. He said that the mirror is a reflection of Jesus Christ. He said that it's a reflection of Jesus Christ back to you. And and then being able to go through the temple, go through the endowment, all that, which I just tried to grasp on what I could. And then I had a lot of family members and loved ones around me, and I, oh, come on, let's show you this. So you go up, you get to see the assembly room, you go see all these other pictures and things, and I was just absolutely blown away. My best way I can explain it was the temple was more than I could ever imagined. But yeah, please take
No, you're here. But that was much needed. You know, I'm gonna self-disclose a bit. You know, like I said, I haven't been the most active for quite some time. You know, just starting to get back here and there. You know, as you say, you know, he said that you're the most prepared. You know, by small and simple things, great things are brought to pass. Mm-hmm. You know, we hear this line upon line, precept upon precept. Mm-hmm. You know, from the very beginning of your, you know, this episode, you know, of your story, you know, I think of, okay, the missionaries, the Book of Mormon, the common theme of these, you know, these girls that you dated, members of the church, you know, they were born into it, so they have this we'll call it flecks of light, mm-hmm. You know, and then building upon that. So I'm trying to turn my therapist's brain off, you know. But even then, you know, one thing prepares us for another. You know, even in, if you ever go to Waimanalo, mm-hmm. Remember Auntie Green? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I ate at her house. Oh, absolutely, I ate at her house, and I knew someone else that I don't remember who it was, but I know some of your other family members. Small world, dude.
It's been a few nights with her. Me and my dad got stuck on the island one time, and we had to stay with her. So then that was the realization when I figured out why they call her
Zitzelberger, yeah?
Huh?
Was it Zitzelberger? Is that the last name?
Oh, I know, I can't even be 100%.
No worries, because there was a guy that I used to donate plasma, mm-hmm. and I knew his sister real well. I ate at her house too. In fact, that's who it was. But anyway, you know, going from Ke'awa, Big Island, mm-hmm. I knew I was going to Lanai. Mm-hmm. I just knew it. Went to the map, boom. But anyway, each area prepared me for the next. And right. even in, you know, last night, you know, Sunday, it was Saturday that we talked the first time, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that was the day that you went through.
Yep. And then Sunday I was super busy. Saturday I was super busy. Sunday I was super busy too. This whole weekend been,
of course,
crazy.
But you know, you talk about, you know, following these promptings from one thing to another. You know,
right.
Joseph Smith says something to the effect of, when you feel a sudden stroke of inspiration coming to your mind, you'll feel it fulfilled that day or soon thereafter. Hmm. You know, and being able to we'll be trusted with more and more,
Right.
as we do that. And, even yesterday when, or Saturday when we got this lined up, I needed this today. One of my grandmas passed away this morning,
Oh my gosh.
and it was a hard day at work, but this isn't about me. This is your story, and
Like I said, if sharing my story can help anybody in any way, then that's what I'm doing it for.
and it has, I don't have a very strong following yet.
Yeah. No, I watched some of your episodes earlier.
Oh,
But not you're good. Like trying to help you out too, man. I want this whole thing to go crazy.
I guess the point being, and I had so much that's gone through my head. Being able earlier when we were eating dinner, just going in and diving in and doing it. This is one way of doing it, for us. There's other areas of life that I just need to dive in.
Exactly. Because what if, think of it this way. You've been blessed to be able to be, like my parents always say, think of it like this. You're born in the USA, right? You're born in, so you're born in a state with a lot of freedom. You're born into a family, into the church. You were baptized in that church. You're able to go on a mission for that church. You're able to be endowed. You're able to go into the temple. All of these things. Do you think that was an accident?
No.
Do you think that, and that's what my parents always said, that out of the millions and billions of people and all the different avenues, different things that could have happened, the chances of you having those blessings, you think that's an accident? And I never really paid attention to that when I was younger. Like, oh, whatever, what I mean?
Yeah,
But,
we take it for granted.
right. And but I really, truly am starting to realize exactly what they were talking about.
But gosh, have you ever heard the song "I'll Find You, My Friend"?
I'm not sure. Is it a church song?
Yeah,
I think so.
it's from the mid '80s, maybe. There's a story that goes along with it. So there was this missionary. He had a dream that he and his best friend were the primo of existence, and they were getting their calls. And he got his. They were celebrating together. You'll be called. You've been called to be born into a family in the United States of America, in a family that has the restored gospel. And in a land of plenty.
Right.
And then his friend gets his call. You will be born into poverty, into a family that does not have the gospel. You have been called to be born in Costa Rica or something like that, And so, some time goes by, and he's actually at his mission farewell, and he gets his call. He goes to Costa Rica, and short time after that, the bishop gets a letter, and there's only 4 words. Well, actually, before that, he said, "I'll find you. I'll come find you, my friend." No, there's 4 words. I found my friend.
Wow.
I do believe that we are, I know, we know that we were called at this time on earth for, a very specific reason. And, in our patriarchal blessings, when is this going to happen? When's that going to happen? it's not on our time. It's on the Lord's time.
Yeah. And this, I haven't read it too many times, but every time I read it, something else seems to grasp onto
Yeah.
me. And I go, whoa, wait, that's happening now. And then there's like some where I'm like, oh man, I really want that one to happen soon. You know, it says that I'll be married and sealed in the temple, right? So I'm like, I want that one I want that one to happen soon. But I'm just like, it's going to be according to my faithfulness too. So I have to stay faithful first in order for it to happen.
Yeah. Sorry. I promise I was listening. Something just popped into my head.
You're good.
You know, in my own, it says, I bless you with a powerful and vibrant voice. You know, I always thought that was, gee, I want to go to Nashville. I want to do this, this, and this.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be a pop star.
Pop star, nothing. Country's where my life's a country music song.
Man, I used to not like country at all, but I started to love country in the last like 30 years. So, man.
Yeah. But I'm wondering if this is more of the platform.
Shoot. Of course it is.
You know, and you know, I do sing. I play the guitar and a couple other things. But, you know, this is one of my callings, and you know, there's a couple other things, but you know, there's also a couple other things that I do want to tell you after we're done. That I don't know. Maybe you want to know, or hopefully I'm not out of line.
Yeah, of course.
You know, this is. I'd love to have you back on as a regular.
Dude, please.
Absolutely. and like I said, until you get your own going, and even after that, you're always more than welcome to come over. And,
Oh, yeah.
and I'll sit over there. And you can have people come on.
So, I forgot even one little piece of this, my story, which is not super critical, but it does play a part. So when I got fired, I usually worked every Sunday night. I would do inventory, and they kept harping on me that it should only take 2 hours to do. But I found out that we have a little bit over 300 items. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, how much should it take to accurately count and do an inventory audit with 310 items? It says 4 to 5 hours. That's about how long it would take me. Take me about 4 or 5 hours just to count everything, and then we would have to adjust. So it would take me another maybe half hour to hour to fix that. So it would be about 5 to 6 hours of doing inventory every night. So I was doing it on Sunday nights because they thought that we could do it in 2 hours. So they would want me to do it, come in early on Monday, do it from 6 to 8, and then start my shift, which I tried doing it and it just never worked out. So I started doing it Sunday night. So then once I got fired, they fired me on a Thursday. And I went to church and I saw a little fireside pamphlet or flyer for Merrill Osmond. And do you know Merrill Osmond's story at all? I think we just talked about this before.
I don't know in full.
So I think so I kind of went over this, but if anybody hasn't looked into Merrill Osmond and Osmonds, definitely look into it. If you get the chance to hear him talk, go hear him talk. He's become part of my story, and maybe he can be part of your guys's. But their story is they have, I think, 4 or 5 sons, and 2 of them were hearing impaired, so they were deaf. So they needed to get hearing aids for their children, for the 2 sons, and so the other boys decided they were all going to sing, and that they were going to try to get money for them to get the hearing aids. And so they did, and they would just go out on the street and whatever, and people would just throw change or whatever, but they would try to get money however they could, whatever they could, to help their brothers. And it's now become this huge, big $1 million charity. But it started as this, it started on the street with people throwing change at them. And then they saved up enough money to where the dad had enough money to take them on a vacation. So they went on a vacation. I can't remember where they were living at the time, but they traveled to they were traveling to Buena Park, California, and the Osmonds in my family is a huge name. You know, my family members that love them. I have a lot of close loved ones that love them a lot when it comes to them. This is totally out of my era. I don't know why I wanted to go to a Merrill Osmond fireside. My mom just told me because he came to, my dad did a College of Hawaii reunion, and Merrill Osmond was there, and he did a little talk and fireside basically there. And my mom was like, "Oh my gosh, he was so good. If you get a chance, go see it."
Yeah.
So I saw the little flyer, and I'm like, "Oh, Mom, look." She's like, "Oh, nice. Do you want to go?" I was like, "No, do you want to go?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, we're going." So we ended up going. Anyways, so they ended up going to Buena Park, California. They were going to go to Disneyland. And my family's from Buena Park, California. My mom was born and raised in Buena Park. So a lot of people that we know, a lot of people like my family, you know, they're very tied to the Osmonds because they were members of the church. So, you know, they go on the way there. They're going to stop at this. There was four sisters that sang, and the Osmonds looked up to them, and they wanted to do an audition for them. So they went to their house, found out where they lived, went up, knocked on their door, sang for them, and the sisters loved them. They said, "Oh my gosh, you know, we want to get you a interview with." They were on the Ed Sullivan Show at the time, so they said, "We want to get you on the audition for the Ed Sullivan Show." He said, "Oh, okay, that's great." It fell through, never happened. So they ended up going to Disneyland anyways, and Disneyland, that's still to this day, and they've always had a barbershop quartet. So the boys were all dressed up in their barbershop quartet because that's what they did as well. So they had on their little get-ups, and they went to Disneyland. And the barbershop quartet looks at them and goes, "You guys sing?" We were like, "Yes, we did." We were like, "Okay, well, sing for us." So they start singing. You know, they're all various ages, right? So
Yeah.
there's olders and then there's youngers. And the older ones are doing great, but the younger ones are struggling. They have these like fake mustaches. They're all falling off all over the place. They got like, you know, the straw hats, and they're one of them's falling off and all this and that and sloppy. The one of the young kids are from what Meryl's saying, because one of the older ones, like, oh my gosh, one of the young kids screw it all up for us, you know? And,
Yeah.
So Walt Disney comes out, and he's watching them this whole time, and he's just busting up, just laughing so hard. And Meryl's like, "Oh my gosh, he's gonna ruin this for us." And Walt Disney just goes, "That was amazing. I love you guys. Keep that in your show. That was amazing." You know, he loved the fact that it was all sloppy and whatnot. You know, so Walt Disney had a TV show, like talent show that was on TV, and he ended up bringing the Osmonds on, and Meryl said that was very hard for them to do, because the acts before them, they would have to kind of tie into what they were doing. So they had to learn how to, you know, they had to follow like seals balancing, you know, things on their hair. They had to learn how to ice skate. They had to learn how to tap dance. They had to learn all these things they never would have ever learned before, right? So it was kind of tough on them, but they did that for multiple years, and then they finally got the audition for the Ed Sullivan Show. So they finally did the audition for the Ed Sullivan Show, and they ended up being on Ed Sullivan for like 10 years or more or something like that. So then it goes from there to them making and getting signed by a record label and making, you know, gold hits and platinum hits. And from what I understand, they have one of the biggest groups, or one of the groups with the most platinum and gold records ever. So then from there it goes to them wanting to make an album. So they wanted to make an album, and they decided, they figured out what they wanted to do, and they go back to the record label. The record label says, "No way, you're not doing that," because it was different than what they had ever done before. And so at the time, you know, kind of like hard rock was in, and that's what most of their hits were, and they didn't want it. They kind of wanted to do something a little different with this album. And the record label was like, "No way, you need to do stuff like what we had before." And they're like, "No, where, where I'm doing that. So they made this album. It was called The Plan. And it was all about the plan of salvation. And so they told them, no, we're doing it. So they released it, and it ended up becoming one of their biggest, most sold albums they've ever had. So it goes from that to them being called to have a meeting with the prophet. And the prophet at the time was Spencer W. Kimball. And so they got a meeting with Spencer W. Kimball, and they're in the room with them and the 12 apostles, and they're sitting down at the seats, and 12 apostles are standing behind them.
That's not intimidating.
And not at all. And they're like 16 or something. They're like pretty young at this time still. And so Spencer W. Kimball tells them, gives them a mission. Tells them, Merrill doesn't disclose what the mission actually was, but knowing their story, I can make a very educated guess of what it was. And basically what I think it is, and, I'm most likely sure it was, but he gave them a mission basically that through their music, that a lot of people will come back to the church, find the church through their music, and that they are to make music and to be like a springboard for people to come back and go to church. So they're like, okay. And they devoured that mission. And then he said before they left, you guys need to go to Missouri. You guys need to do shows in Missouri. And he's like, they're all thinking, what, like
Branson, Missouri.
Why? I think so. Yes. I mean, you're right. I always forget what city. I'm pretty sure you're right though. Because at the time, you would have to travel right through the middle of the city. The freeway ran right through the middle of the city. So if you went through that city, you would see that the Osmonds were playing there.
Oh yeah, get the city right there.
Right. So they ended up doing over a million shows within a summer. So like 4 months, they did over a million shows. Anyways, Merrill goes to sleep one night. He has a vision. The prophet Joseph Smith came to him in a dream and told him that because of him and because of his family and through his music, that his posterity, he's very sad because his posterity has left the church. A lot of them have left the church, and because of his music, through his music, his posterity will come back to the church. So he's like, wakes up and he's like, whoa, like that was heavy, like what the heck, whoa, that was heavy. And but he still has it in his head, like it's kind of like in the back of his head, and so there's another story of you get to hear it from the other side. From her name is Kim, which is the great I can't remember how many times it goes back, 4 or 5 I think, granddaughter of Joseph Smith. And usually in the firesides, he has like a whole PowerPoint, and she just tells her testimony through a little video. This time, and I've heard it was only the second time that they were ever together in the same building, but Kim was there that night, and she was able to tell her testimony in person. So that was a great experience to have that. So she tells her side, and her story is that she is a singer, and she loves to sing unison, so paired up with another person, and she always loved the Osmonds and listened to the Osmonds a lot. But her dad was such an anti-Mormon that he did not want her to listen to the Osmonds, didn't want them to do anything with them. They're Mormons, and they'll persuade you into this BS, and don't listen to them, don't ever listen to them, because you get persuaded very easily, and stay away. So she was like, she would like kind of do it behind his back, She was like, no way, like, because her mom died at an early age, and her mom taught her the Holy Ghost and taught her to follow the Holy Ghost and the feeling of that. And so she heard what her dad was saying, but every time that she listened to the Osmonds and listened to Merrill specifically, she felt the Holy Ghost strongly. So she always says that the Holy Ghost trumped everything for her. So even though her dad didn't want her to, she still listened. She was still very drawn and loved Meryl. Um, she ends up, she didn't even know she was a posterity of Joseph Smith. She didn't even know who he was. But she ends up doing like some family research thing and finds out that she's related to Joseph Smith. And she still didn't know who that was. But one day she ended up going into like a family institute, and it was through the church. And she goes in there, and this is the days of the old computers where it's a blue screen with the yellow wording. And
Oh, yeah. I remember
one of the first ones. Yeah, like I barely remember those, but I know what she's talking about. So they go in, and you're supposed to do it yourself. So they're like, "Oh, do you know how to use the computer?" She lies. She goes, "Yeah." And so like, "Okay, well, here's the computer. Go ahead, we're here if you need any help." She goes over there and she's trying to figure it out, and it's like Japanese. She doesn't know what she's doing. So the guys see what she's doing, and they know that she doesn't know what she's doing at all. So they tell her, we can help you. What's the farthest back last name that you have? And she goes, "Well, there's a lot of Smiths. I don't think that they'll realize what's going on." So she goes, Smith." So they type it in, Smith. "Oh, okay. First name?" She's like, "There's a lot of Josephs out there. They won't know anything." She goes,
Right.
"Joseph?" And they both were like, "Okay." So they type it in, and and they're like the prophet? And she had never heard Joseph Smith talked in that way. She'd always been told that he was a horrible man, bad man, this and that, all these things bad about him. And that was the first time she had ever been told that he was a prophet. And that kind of like hit her. And then she realized that she was a posterity of the prophet Joseph Smith, and started going into his story, and then felt the Holy Ghost while she was listening to his story. So she's starting to get the Holy Ghost is starting to touch her, starting to get, she's starting to take, lessons and starting to figure out the church. And then it comes to the point where she's a singer, like I said, and she kept traveling back and forth in between states, and she had to kept going to Nebraska, Missouri. So she would have gone through there many times. And like I said, you have to go straight through the city. So she would see this, the Osmonds playing tonight, and her dad never would let her go see them. So she never got the chance to go see them. And then one night it ended up being that she ended up winning tickets to go to an Osmond show. So I believe the night that she won the tickets was the night that Joseph Smith came in and Meryl's vision. So she ends up going to the concert. And she wanted to meet them, so she stayed as long as she could. And she's there, and she gets to meet most of the Osmonds except for Meryl. And everybody's gone at this point. Literally, she's like the only person there, maybe like less than a handful. And she's getting kind of discouraged, and she's like, "Okay, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to meet Meryl like I wanted," and she goes to turn around, goes to leave. And
there
she hears his voice, and she goes, turns around, "Meryl!" Runs up to her, and she starts telling him, "Hi, I'm Kim, and I'm actually a great granddaughter of Joseph Smith." And he goes, "I was meant to meet you," and pulls her in the back, and they start talking like some things, all history. But that's basically the story of Meryl Osmond. And I was able to be there to hear both sides. Like I said, not many people get to hear that. And if I wasn't fired, then I would not have been able to be there for that fireside as well. And then there was also Kim's aunt there, Gracia, which she lives here in town. They've been here in town for a long time. Small world again. My mom ends up knowing her. My mom, so Gracia married a guy named Ivor, and my mom used to drive bus a long time ago when I was a kid. And Ivor, they called him Ivor the driver, and he was the trainer for the bus drivers. So my mom ended up knowing them, and so it gets to the end, and they wanted to do a Q&A. So I wrote down a question that I had in my mind basically from the beginning, as soon as he started. And I ended up, as he's going through his story, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he answered this question through the story, but I still want to ask him. So, they're like, oh, who's got any questions? And one guy goes before me. The second question. The first question was a guy, and there's a lot of hearing impaired people there because it's part of the story. And
Right.
he's like, he's trying to ask a question. It's kind of hard to hear, but he must have repeated it at least 4 times. And by that time, we kind of all figured out what he was saying. He was saying, how do you know if you're a posterity of Joseph Smith, and how do you even like find this out? And what a perfect question, because the lineage is sitting like 5 people away from him.
Right.
So they're like, they give the microphone to Kim's cousin, which is Gracia's son, and that's the great 5 times, I think, grandson of Joseph Smith, and he's a part of that exact thing. He helps people find out if they are related to Joseph Smith and their lineage and these things and that. So he's like, get with me at the end. He's like, if any of you guys have questions, please get with me. If you have any questions like this, I can give you my information. We'll figure it out, and we'll go from there, And he goes, I just want to get up and say a couple things. And he gets up, and honestly, he was talking about the atonement of Jesus Christ, and because of that, how everybody is able to come back to the gospel, and that nobody can go far enough away without feeling and having the Lord's hand in their life. And through the atonement, we are once again able to go back to our Heavenly Father and live with Him again. And that's in my own words. He is amazing and says it his own way, which is just absolutely amazing. But he stands up, and you know how Joseph Smith had like that brow?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he has it. He has the brow. And so like he stands up, and I'm just like staring at him, and he looks just like Joseph Smith to me almost. He's bigger, but he has the facial features of Joseph Smith, and he's taught the way his diction, the way that he talks, sounds like Joseph Smith. And he's sitting there, just like I was doing, just like this, with one of his hands. And when I see like depictions of Joseph Smith, it was like a mirror image. I swear on everything, it was like Joseph Smith was there speaking to me directly, and I was like, oh my gosh, And I got up right after this, and I said a question. I was like, so how did the Osmond family stay so strong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints through all this fame? And I'm sure it wasn't a popular thing to do, and you guys were the very first people to ever do this. And he says it goes back to getting that mission call from the prophet. It goes back to the vision that he saw and seeing it come to fruition right in front of him. And he said, we weren't popular at all. Nobody wanted to be on our side. The one thing about Merrill, and he mentioned this pretty early that I skipped, but they were friends with a lot of people. They became as popular as the Beatles. Okay, they got to meet the Queen of England. They, traveled the world. They literally were as popular as the Beatles. And they got to meet a lot of famous people. The most famous one being Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was best friends with the Osmond family. Elvis Presley called the Osmond mother his second mother, and their mom gave him a Book of Mormon, and Elvis Presley, before he died, took 2 lessons before he died.
Wow.
Because of the Osmond family. So, I mean, their story is absolutely amazing. But going back to David, after the meeting was done, I said, I got to go meet that guy. And I get up, and we're talking, and I told him, there's somebody right before me that said it. He was like, man, you look like Joseph Smith. And they're kind of like jokingly saying, he's like, yeah, it's the brow. I get it from my mom and this and that. And I'm just in there staring at him. And I waited for my turn. And it was my turn. And I said, you know what? I know somebody said this before me, but seriously, you look like Joseph Smith. I was like, first, like, I could feel the prophet's spirit here. I could hear his voice. I could feel him through you. It was like he was here, and I said, thank you, and I kind of told him, I'm not supposed to be here tonight. I had just gotten fired. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here tonight. And I quickly told him, I'm a comeback story of my own. I just barely coming back to the church and just got ordained as an elder. And, I plan on taking my endowment at the end of this month. And we're just sitting there bawling our eyes out to each other because he has his own comeback story as well. And I honestly haven't been able to hear it, but he's definitely going to be an episode online for sure. But he says, don't leave without me getting your information. So I'm kind of just like waiting off to the side, and my mom wanted to go say hi to Gracia, and she didn't think she was going to remember, but Gracia remembered her. Like, oh my gosh, I love you. I was like, of course. I was like, of course she knows you, Mom. What are you talking about? And so I'm waiting in line to meet Meryl because ties back to Elvis again. Before the fireside started, Meryl makes it a point in every fireside to go up to every single person that's inside the fireside and shake their hand and meet them. The reason why is because, like I said, they were very close with Elvis. And one thing that Elvis said before he died was, he was asked, if there's one thing you could change, what would it be? He said, I wish I could have went out into the crowd and shook every single person's hand that came and saw me. So Meryl makes it a point every time at every fireside, anywhere he speaks, to go out to every single person and shake their hand and meet them personally. And so I'm waiting over there, and I got to meet him. Me and my mom were sitting in the middle pews, and he's trying to come to us, but he's getting pulled this way, he's getting pulled that way, and now the pews are stuffed, and he's not able to come to us anymore. And I'm like, Mom, I want to go meet him, So we get up and I get to shake his hand. He's like, well, thank you for coming. That was basically it. Wasn't much more of that. But then afterwards, I'm waiting in the line to meet him, and there's probably 10 people in line before me, and I'm just sitting there patiently waiting because, like I said, I'm waiting for David to get. He had like 20 people in line waiting for him. So I'm just patiently waiting so then I can get the information from David, and then we can leave or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I want a picture of Meryl. So we're waiting in the line, and like I said, there's like 10 people in front of me. And I just keep going, well, go ahead. Like I'm gonna be here for a while. I'm waiting, and there's like 6 people in line, and he just like he was talking. Someone was like talking literally like right next to him, and he like trying to take pictures or whatever, and he just points at me, and goes, "You're my new best friend," and he's like, "That's my new best friend right there," and I'm like me, and he's like, yeah, you're my new best friend, and I'm like, okay, like,
oh man,
right, like, love it, I don't know anything, but yeah, love it. And so like I said, there's like 6 people in line, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And he's like, no, I gotta talk to you. So he skips all of them, comes straight to me, gives me a hug, and now I kind of trimmed my beard, but it was like pretty burly, pretty big. And he just goes, there's something about you, He's like, you have a glow. There's something about you. He's like, don't ever change. He's like, don't ever shave your beard either. He's like, I love your beard. Don't ever shave it. And I'm like, oh man, don't say that. Because I've been going to the temple a lot. And one thing that keeps happening is a lot of people keep telling me that I need to be a temple worker. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Because I was like, I don't want to get rid of the beard, And my hair, I actually cut it. But I used to have like pretty big, long mullet. And it was honestly longer. It was like, I don't know how much longer. Probably like 5 inches longer in the back, honestly. It was like pretty damn long. But I was like, yeah, because he always had like a goatee. He always had a goatee and had this long like hair. And he still has the hair, but he got rid of the goatee. He's like, yeah, I had to get rid of the goatee because I'm a temple worker. He's like, I work in the mornings, at St. George. And I'm like, oh man, like I was like, I always remember you with the goatee because I have seen pictures a lot in my life about the Ospreys. So I'm like, yeah, actually, I do remember you with the goatee. And I was like, but you still got the hair, you still got the hair, right? And so he's like, all right, we take a picture, and that was basically it. But I know for a fact, like I told David, I was like, I know, because at first I didn't know what I needed to be there for. And then once I heard David speak, and I got to hear the first Meryl story and then Kim's story and how they tie together, and then hearing David, I was like, I told him, I was like, I was meant to meet you. I know I was here. I know I was meant to meet you. So he was actually at my endowment, and we'd gotten pretty close. And he's seriously like one of the greatest people I've met. And me and him plan on kind of doing firesides and stuff together. So pretty cool little piece of the story there too.
You're a natural at this. Yeah, I'm just this oddball. I like to, dude. You're a natural. Well, I can see a lot of stuff going for you. I mean, even on this, not so much as this platform, maybe so.
Right.
On your own platform, and
exactly.
You got a lot. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. It's happening, and it's happening very quickly. And it's funny because I game my buddies, and I'll kind of make fun of like streamers,
Yeah.
Oh, make sure you like, subscribe, comment to people, get your chance to win this giveaway, whatever it is. And they kept telling me, like, oh, you should be a streamer. And I'm like, no. But then I'm like, but dude, like it's playing in, this is almost like similar. And one thing I'm very good at is just being myself.
Yeah.
That's all I can really do. You either like it, or you hate it, you love it, whatever.
If you don't, whatever, it's your own problem, Now, this is good. It's been so eye-opening. We're going to have to wrap up.
No, I'm good, man.
It's like, it's 10:40.
Oh my gosh.
We've been doing this for like
3 hours?
Yeah. 67 minutes so far. Like, it's gone by so fast.
It really has.
No.
I feel like I could talk forever too, man.
You know what? Are you up for doing it again in a couple of weeks?
I don't care, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I've got a guy coming on tomorrow. He follows we follow each other on Instagram. Mm-hmm. He's got his own clothing line and this other stuff. He's got a pretty cool story too. But anyway, that's beyond the point.
Right.
I'm not gonna get it done tonight, but I'll start the editing process on this tonight. I've got like 4 or 5 more episodes I've got for this, but I should be able to get it done.
No, man, you're good. Take your time.
Well, I might even break this up into a couple.
Yes, please. I think that's how it would have to kind of be done, actually. But I think we got a good start.
This is good. In fact, you know what? Did you see an episode with the guy with the long beard?
Yeah, I did.
So I've got a lot of episodes. I'd love to have you on here with him, or even just by yourself, whatever.
Yeah.
I'd love to just sit back and watch and listen.
Yeah, no, be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and hey, love you, dude.
Yeah, of course. Make sure you like, subscribe.
Yeah, right. we'll get my one tooth. We'll get everything uploaded. When you get your TikTok and everything, let me know.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
We'll link it to this too. All right, everybody. Thank you much, and here we go.